You're listening to Packers Talk Network.
Do you want to experience the thrill of a Packers game at Lambeau Field? If so, be sure to get your guaranteed authentic tickets from theticketking.com, a longtime trusted source and local Green Bay business. Just go to packerstalk.com/tickets for more information and ticket links. That's packerstalk.com/tickets.
Welcome to the Packers Weekly Podcast. I am your host, Miles Teddick, joined by your co-host, Tim Hamilton. And we couldn't be more excited to be coming to y'all this evening after that win over the Cowboys. My goodness. Real quick, though, just a quick introductions. We are diehard Packers fans that love talking about the Pack. We're not diving into all the national sports media talking points and nonsense. We're getting into real football. Which there's plenty of to talk about. We're diving into the top topics around the Pack every week, breaking down the games during the season and sorting through all the drama and the rumors of the offseason. If y'all want to support the podcast, please spike that like button. Whatever platform you're on, there's probably some form of like button. Give us a follow or a subscribe. All the social things that you could do that take a split second, don't cost a dime, and really go a long way towards helping us. We would greatly appreciate it. Tonight, we get to talk about some Cowboys thoughts, and we also get to start looking ahead to this 49ers matchup we've got to talk about here. A lot of fun stuff to get to, but Tim, man, what's got you most excited about this one?
I mean, everything. They kicked the shit out of the Cowboys. I mean, yeah. It was an ass whooping, and we talked last week. We both expected them to win, but we knew it was going to be a tough matchup. I wasn't expecting a blowout, and I don't think you were either. And, there was very few people out there that expected the Packers to go out there and dominate the game and be up 41-16 at one point before, some garbage touchdowns at the end. I mean, just they humiliated the Cowboys, and it was awesome. I mean, from start to finish, other than, I got a little – as some garbage plays and garbage points there in the fourth quarter made it a little closer than it looked like, but they were in complete control of that game from the start, and it was awesome. Won the coin toss, said we want the ball first, and went right down the field and put 7 points up on the board. And you could really, I don't know, just watching the game. I wasn't in the stadium, obviously, but watching the game, you could kind of see the Cowboys, even from that first drive, start to get tight. And, they're showing shots of McCarthy on the sideline, and it was like, dude, the game just started. It's only 7-0, but they look tight. And, they got the 2-score lead after the Jair pick, up 14-0. And you could feel it watching the game just by what they looked like and the problems that the Cowboys were having on offense, and just the way the Packers offense was dominating them. That got away from the Cowboys real quick. And the Packers they had a plan, and they executed on offense to perfection. Just complete domination. And LaFleur his play calling and his game plan were excellent. And Jordan Love was on it. I mean, to have almost a perfect passer rating in your first playoff game, I mean, it's incredible. An incredible performance by him. Aaron Jones, we keep talking about this is 4 weeks in a row. He's over 100 yards. The difference he makes for the offense. But, I mean, to put up 48 points, 41 from the offense, Christian Watson and Jaden Reed weren't even factors in the game, and they still put up 41 points. Are you kidding me?
Well, to say Watson wasn't a factor, that's not
okay. He didn't.
We'll get to that, though.
Right. He was I mean, he took 3 guys with him, and Romeo Doubs was wide open for a big play. That was one of the cool plays in that game in the first half. But they didn't put up big numbers. They didn't score touchdowns. Jaden Reed didn't even catch a ball. And they still put up 41 points on offense. That's just awesome. Guys were wide open, and when they weren't wide open, Jordan Love was threading the needle to them. Just an incredible performance from the offense. The defense really did their job in the first half or first 3 quarters. created turnovers, created a touchdown. And, as soon as they got a 2-score lead, you could feel all the life sucked out of the Cowboys and all the pressure just closed down on them. And the Packers played loose, and they were clearly the better team. And all I've heard about since that game, well, why the game was still going on, and then obviously after it, and now here we are the next day, is Cowboys, Cowboys, Cowboys. And it's like, wait a second. We need to talk about the Packers, because that wasn't about the Cowboys. That was the Packers kicking their ass. That wasn't some Cowboy choke job. That was the Packers just being the better team and kicking their ass, thoroughly beating them in a playoff game in their own building. So lots of credit to the Packers. And it's on to San Francisco. I mean, just who would have thought this, when they were 6-8 coming out of the Bucs game and the Giants game, and here they are going to the divisional round of the playoffs. Like, they just keep surprising us. And as young of a team as they are, with the first-time starter, nothing seems to phase them. Doesn't matter if it's the playoffs, on the road, nothing gets to them. And they're the hot team right now.
Yeah, no, this is it's exciting, man. It's kind of funny because you can't really explain a lot of things that you think about before a game, right? But this one just kind of had a feeling to it, right? It just felt like you could win this game. The Cowboys were probably the better team on paper for all sorts of reasons, but it just felt like the Packers had the ability to go in and win this one. As far as like what I'm most excited about, my goodness, the offensive line. They held their own. Not only held their own, they neutralized one of the best pass rushes in the entire league. Like, at that point, when you're capable of that, man, now we're really talking about a high ceiling. Now you're because Jordan Love is going to be able to do whatever he wants to do, and clearly so is Aaron Jones. I mean, to the tune of 3 touchdowns. My goodness. So I think all of that revolves around the offensive line having come together and doing a phenomenal job against that front seven of the Cowboys. They dominated. They dominated. They did. That's really the best way to put it. And that's, I mean, my goodness, like that's what I'm most excited about. Is just the offensive line being able to do what they did is, I mean, unexpected. It's incredible as young as they are. Your tackles are a 4th and a 7th round pick. I mean, it's really, really what they're doing there is special. So that's what I would say I'm most excited about. But let's ask a fun question here, man, because I think it's time to start talking about this from just an objective perspective, if you will. Is it possible Love is going to be better than Rodgers? Is this even possible?
At this point, I mean, if you're looking at Love 2023 to what Rodgers was last season, yeah, he's far better than what Rodgers played last season.
Oh, yeah. No, we've already closed the book on that one, yeah.
And if you're just comparing their first years as a starter, which is really what you should be looking at, he had a better first year, and now he's carried it in the playoffs. And I'm not going to say, like, hey, the first year at Rodgers, they were 6-10. Wasn't all Rodgers' fault. They lost a lot of close games. Their defense was poor. They didn't make the playoffs, so now Love gets the benefit, and Love has the benefit. There's an extra playoff team, too, or else they wouldn't have made the playoffs. So that gets him in. But the way he's played since, like, week 9 has been unbelievable. And not only is it better than what Rodgers did in his first year, like, you can compare it to the run-the-table season with Rodgers and what he did. I'm not going to say it's quite on that level, but it's getting close. I mean, he's red hot right now. He's playing as good a quarterback as anybody in the NFL right now. I mean, long term, there's no way I could say he's going to be better than Aaron Rodgers. It's 1 year, and Rodgers is a Hall of Famer with 4 MVPs. So that comparison, it's way too soon for that. But at this point in their career, Love's further ahead, and we'll see from there. And I think what's so encouraging is, like, what we saw from day one, going back to the preseason games and the early part of the season, and when they were having their struggles, like, he doesn't get rattled. He's kind of the same dude every week. And that's awesome ability to have, is that nothing gets to him. And now we're seeing, like, his ability take over, The receivers have gotten more consistent. They're not making their mistakes. Like you said, the offensive line was dominant yesterday. The offensive line's been better over the second half of the season. They have a running game. Like, it's all coming together. But he's still lifting them, and he's still playing better. And he's not even at his, he's not playing at his full capability of what he should be next year and future years from now. So, yeah, I mean, his ceiling is so high right now.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to say that when he's playing this well, and he's definitely one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL already, top 10, top 5 maybe. And he's not even at his full peak.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the future's there.
It's exciting.
Yeah, it's unbelievable.
And I want to jump in real quick and just I don't know if you're experiencing this at all, Tim. There was a little bit of interruption with the stream there. There was, I don't know if some folks are missing some of the things that you're saying or not. But what I will say is just hang tight with us, guys. Be patient. We're at the mercy of Wi-Fi's here. There's just not a whole lot that can be done about that. But if you would like to listen to the entire episode of this podcast uninterrupted without any kind of streaming glitches or anything like that, it will be available on PackersTalk.com in full with nice, clean local recordings. So it'll be nice and easy to listen to if you want to catch it there. So hang with us. Be patient. Sometimes streaming comes with its technical difficulties. We're going to do the best we can, and we're going to keep talking about this domination over the Cowboys as much as we can. But yeah, I mean, Jordan Love, to say he's ahead of schedule is that's an understatement at this point. He's absolutely a top 10 quarterback in the NFL right now. I'm not going to hear otherwise. And I think that we're in the process, or, in progress of maybe being forced to talk about him as a top 5 quarterback by the end of the season. Like, this guy is playing incredible right now. And I mean, I don't know how you could ask him to play better. He just was the best QBR in playoff history that he had yesterday. Not just Packer playoff history, like NFL playoff history, right?
Yeah,
I think.
Yeah, I mean, he was incredible, and his numbers. We're like comparing him to like all these other quarterbacks that have played. That's his first game that he played like that,
right?
So it's like, and that's supposed to be tough. I mean, that's a big step up as your first playoff game because it's so much different than the regular season. It didn't look any different for him. I mean, he was awesome.
He was cold as ice, man. Not from like a rhythm perspective. He had ice in his veins.
Yeah.
Chill as a cucumber maybe is a little bit better.
Yeah, and even like you talked about the offensive line, and they were awesome yesterday. Even the few times, and there were maybe 3 times in the game where he got pressured. He made incredible throws on the pressure.
Yeah, no, it was it was
nothing
beautiful.
got to him.
It was beautiful, and I gotta say, I got to a point. I was watching the game around a bunch of Cowboys fans. I started feeling bad for him because I was just like,
no, don't ever feel bad for Cowboys.
And I was with good friends. I was like, man,
right,
I did want kind of a close game for us all to enjoy until the end, but that was not happening, and I was very okay with that. But they could not enjoy the game to save their lives, and I did feel for them on that one. But yeah, it was a lot of fun to watch that. I mean, the Darnell Savage interception, just chef's kiss, beautiful. Very reminiscent of the Tremont Williams pick 6 against Atlanta back in 2011 playoff, 2010. Just so much fun. What was your favorite big play of the game? Maybe your favorite score, favorite, interception. What was your favorite part of that game?
The Savage one's a pretty good one, but I'm going to go with the touchdown to Wicks just because that to me showed so much of Jordan Love. He got up there in the line. He used his cadence. Looked a lot like Rodgers. Shout out to Rodgers for that. Maybe he picked up a thing or two sitting behind him for 3 years, but he used his cadence to get them to show that they were coming on a blitz. Changed to protection, brought Tucker Kraft in to help with the protection, moved Jaden Reed at the last second right before the play clock expired in motion, and then knew that they were coming.
Yep.
And they still got somebody free on him. But he drifted back just far enough to give Wicks enough time to beat Stephon Gilmore to the post and hit him with a beautiful touchdown pass. It was so cool to see that because it was all the pre-snap recognition that you wouldn't expect from a first-year starter.
Yeah.
And I know he's, now he's in a playoff game, so he's had 17 games, now 18 games this season to bank that experience. But you still, in that moment, play clock running down, wouldn't necessarily expect that. And he did all those right things to get them to show their hand before they wanted to, know that there's pressure coming, reset the protection, do it perfectly, and then make a beautiful throw to Wicks. And that to me was just, it showed so much about where he's at right now already as a quarterback. And then like just thinking like, this is what we have now for the next, 15 years before they trade him to the Jets. So we get to experience all that again with another quarterback is just incredible. And he's at that point already in his process of growing as a quarterback. So yeah, that was probably my favorite play. Savage is right up there too. And I mean, I love the Luke Musgrave touchdown pass where he's wide open because it's just that's shout out LaFleur for the design of that play.
He stayed on his feet.
Yeah, he stayed on his feet, which was, yeah. But just the design to get him leaking out like that where he just goes the other way from the play and the Cowboys just completely blow the coverage. They're not looking at him. He's wide open.
There were some frames you couldn't even see a Cowboy on the field.
Couldn't
see him on the field.
Yeah. And I mean, LaFleur deserves a lot of credit. He's in his bag right now. I mean, his play calling has just been so good over the second half of the season. And, everybody's benefiting that, including Jordan Love, but you have to have the players to make it work. They do. And even when he doesn't have somebody that's wide open, Jordan Love has to make some incredible throws, and he's doing that. So it's like everything's coming together offensively. But yeah, to me, to answer your question, my favorite play was the Wicks touchdown pass.
I think that pass to Dobbs, man, where he just threaded the needle in there, kind of back across his body.
On the fourth down touchdown.
Man, that's one of those where if it had been Rodgers or Mahomes that had done that, everybody would just be all over themselves now. But that was just beautiful.
It was, and it was like I couldn't, he's moving all the way and he had to throw a bullet and credit to Dobbs for catching it. There was a clip somebody posted on Twitter today. It was actually a Favre, and it was against the Cowboys in a playoff game in Texas Stadium. And it was like very similar. He was drifting to his right and he threw back to Robert Brooks for a touchdown. So even number 87 called it.
Yes.
Right. And I was like, oh my God. And then I'm like, I looked at him like, yeah, I remember that play, but I didn't even think of it. And it was so similar to what Jordan Love did right in the end zone like that, inside the 5. It was like, oh my God. It was just, it's so eerie.
So much fun to watch.
Yeah.
So
I mean, he's Favre and Rodgers. He's a mix of both of them.
He really does. He feels like he's got the best of both of them. And he's got a long career to go, right? We've certainly seen plenty of quarterbacks in their second year as a starter take a step backwards. No career trajectory is perfectly linear, not even Mahomes. He's had a couple of ups and downs. But what you're seeing from Love in the only sample size you have is just – it's awesome, man. You have to pinch yourself to remind yourself that this is real life right now. You can't say Hall of Fame quarterback, right? But you've got your third straight franchise quarterback. I think that is signed, sealed, and delivered. Jordan Love's his franchise quarterback. He's the Packers franchise quarterback for the foreseeable future. And like what a cool thing to have. The way I described it, even before beating the Cowboys, was it's kind of like, on Christmas, you got the gift you wanted. You got the big gift, like the new gaming console, whatever it is. But then there's still gifts under the tree. You're like, what? There's more? Jeez. You're spoiled. Like, yes, for all the other fans out there, we know we're spoiled.
Absolutely.
I don't care. I do not care. I'm not mad about it at all.
Nope. No, I'm not mad at all. We're spoiled. I'll take it.
Hell yeah, man. So awesome game there. Very, very fun to watch. I mean, we already said what was the most exciting thing about that. Who are your MVPs here? Who's your offensive MVP? Stick to one. You got to stick to one. And one defensive MVP.
It's tough on offense. So we talked about Jordan. You talked about the O-line. I would love to give we've already talked about them, so I won't. I mean, Aaron Jones again.
Why not?
Why not? 4 weeks in a row over 100 yards. He makes such a difference for this offense. and he just owns Texas Stadium or whatever it's called, AT&T Stadium. Transfer the ownership, right? We have ownership of the Bears transferred to Jordan Love. Now we should have ownership, it should be Lambeau Field South down there in Dallas because they always win down there.
Oh, it
And
has
Aaron
been
Jones,
declared such on Twitter. Absolutely.
yeah,
It is
it's Lambeau
South.
South. And, transfer that to the entire Packer franchise, but especially Aaron Jones, because whenever he plays down there, he goes off. And 3 touchdowns yesterday. The whole, he had holes, so shout out to the offensive line run back blocking, but he hits those holes so quickly. And the way he can cut back, when it's outside zone and he's cutting back, puts his foot in the ground and goes the other way. It's awesome to see. AJ Dillon's a nice back. He's a nice complimentary back, but he cannot come anywhere near matching what Aaron Jones can do. And you see the difference. We had AJ Dillon most of the season as the lead back when Jones was hurt. Now, since Jones is back, the difference is just, it's huge. It's incredible, the difference that he makes and the overall offense. Having that running game and the play action off of it, it's such a big difference, and it opens up everything. And I think that's part of the reason why they've been able to overcome all these injuries at receiver and tight end is because now they have Aaron Jones back healthy. It's also Jordan Love. It's also Matt LaFleur. It all plays into that, the offensive line. But Aaron Jones has been incredible. And they're finally feeding him the ball. This is 20 carries a week, every week now. We're not used to this.
No, this is awesome. I love it.
Yeah, and he looks fresh. I mean, he's an old man for a running back at 29 years old, but he's fresh, man. He's got his burst, and he's making people miss. He's running through tackles.
Listen, I was resigned to the idea that this was his last season as a Packer coming into the season, and I am no longer. He needs to be a Packer. He needs another contract. He's one you break the rules for. There's a handful of them, over the last few years that you break the rules for and you give that guy the contract. He's one of them.
Absolutely.
And he doesn't have to be RB1 to have his impact. Maybe you sign him to a 3-year contract. It gets him to 31 years old, and he's eventually your RB2, but he's still bringing that same dynamic. It's like that Toby Keith song. He's not as good as he once was, but he's good once as he ever was. And I think that's what Aaron Jones can give you until the day he retires. That's projection, but what he gives you in the locker room, priceless. Absolutely priceless. Every last one of those dudes loves that man. And you have to well, I shouldn't say you have to. I mean, eventually you have to move on. Mercedes Lewis, we would have loved to have him back. I think it was, he kind of qualifies that as well. But I think Aaron Jones is still within that window of ability that you got to keep him for his chemistry in the locker room, that just the character and the leader that he is. When he's healthy on the field, he is absolutely dangerous. And it is gut-wrenching to a defense, man. It wasn't even like you expect him to take off for a 40, 50-yard run at some point. It's that you can't stop him from hitting those 8 to 10-yard runs. Just slice, 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 slice. And it just happens so quick and so smooth, like lightning. We said it last week. And these guys, that has got to be demoralizing to a defense. Because you're just thinking, how do you stop this guy? You don't even have a chance. Like, as soon as you diving, they snap the ball and he's 10 yards up the field. Yeah. So yeah, he's as good of an offensive MVP for the game as any. And I think my offensive MVP, I'm gonna take the cliche, the obvious one here, and go with Jordan Love. I mean, putting up the highest QBR, the highest QB rating, all the stats and the numbers and all of that. It's his first year. It was his first playoff start. And the other thing that was pretty eerie is I believe his stats were virtually identical to C.J. Stroud's.
Yeah, I saw that. It was incredible. Yeah, and they both made their first playoff starts. It was, it's just crazy. Every number just about, yeah.
I give him the MVP for leading that unit. I think you could give the MVP to almost anybody out there. On the offense right now. The offensive line looked great, but Jordan Love is certainly in a leadership position in that unit, and he led that unit very well. Just a situation where he wasn't expected to. Cowboys undefeated at home. They've got all the veteran players over there, the star power, the Super Bowl winning former coach and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, Jordan Love just doesn't care. He doesn't care, dude. Just walks
No.
in, plays football, and leaves.
And that was one of the, like, I thought about it before the game. I'm like, I wonder, is he going to come out nervous? He's going to come out his first playoff game on the road, butterflies, like throwing the ball a little high, a little all over the plate, rocket balls like Favre used to throw. Nope. Like there was none of that. Right down the field. Precision.
So chill.
Yeah. Like nothing got to him. The few times they had pressure in his face, didn't matter. He made the throws.
Just incredible, man.
Yeah. It was just, it's so cool to watch.
Who's your defensive MVP?
Kenny Clark again.
Kenny Clark.
Yeah, I mean, he didn't have, his stats aren't going to pop off the page, but he was up front and he was doing a hell of a job in some run plays, some pressures, and that was a good offensive line he was facing. They have 2 all-pro, pro ball guards in there and a pretty good center too. Kenny Clark did a really good job wrecking some things in a run game, some pressures too against Dak in a passing game. So he continues, like, I think he's early in the year, maybe even through the middle part of the year, I think he was kind of quiet, or I think he'd have one good game and then a couple games where he really wouldn't notice him doing anything. But he's gotten really consistent over the second half of the year. Even though the defense has struggled and they've been such a mess in so many other places, I think he's been really consistent. And again, he's not going to be a guy that ever gets like 10 sacks from the interior. That's tough to do for an interior lineman other than Aaron Donald. That's really tough to do, but his sack numbers were good, and he pressures, and he's creating things for other guys on the team or other guys on the line, his edge rushers. I think he had a really nice year for him, and I think that, I noticed him in the backfield or pushing the offensive lineman in the backfield to blow up some plays on Sunday. So, yeah, shout out Kenny Clark. I thought he had a really nice game again for him. What about you? Who's your guy on defense?
Man, I'm going to go maybe a little bit more obvious again, and I'm going with Jair Alexander, man.
Yeah, I had a feeling you were.
I love his energy, especially after what he's gone through this season and stirring up some stuff. He played a great game, comes up with the interception, hell of an interception.
Yeah.
You can tell that he's taking on his leadership role in that defense, and then he finishes it with a cherry on top, with the just like big figurative middle finger to Bob Domofsky over there. Did you catch that? What happened in his post-game press conference?
Yeah, he didn't answer his question. He kind of just ignored him.
Man, it was cold as ice. Cold as ice. And so that's where I was like, yes, that's the guy right there. So I don't know if anybody still wants to get rid of Jair Alexander. I certainly think he needs a lifetime contract still. What about you? You think anybody's out there still trying to get rid of this man?
I sure hope not. And I mean, it looked like he wasn't going to play after the crazy sprained his ankle, stepping on somebody's foot in a walk through practice on Wednesday. Like, you kidding me? Only the Packers can go through and not even a real practice, a jog through practice, and somebody gets hurt, and it's, of course, a starting cornerback, your best starting cornerback.
The one who's having all sorts of, controversial issues.
Yeah, plus he's got all that, like, are you kidding me that this would be? And so I wasn't expecting him to play. Not only does he play, but he played really well. So the pick, and beyond the pick, he played really well. And he played in your face. He talked a little smack, which is always good. But I like when he talks smack and he backs it up, and he did that on Sunday. But again, he hurt the ankle and didn't come back in the second half. So now it's up in the air. Is he going to be ready for the 49ers on a short week? I guess we'll have to wait. I think so, too. I mean, he did a lot, supposedly, behind the scenes to get ready to even make himself available for that game. A lot of treatment and taking care of it. So the fact that he showed up and played like that against Dallas, I think he'll show up and be ready to go against the 49ers, too. But, that's going to be probably wait until game time to see if he's on the inactive list or not. But yeah, he played a really good game, and that's 2 weeks in a row where he's come back after his suspension and played really well for them. So it's the response we've wanted to see from him. And
even he didn't do this against nobody, right? I mean, he gave CeeDee Lamb a bad day.
Yeah.
So that's why he's my defensive MVP there. Again, I think you could make a case for several guys across the defense. Certainly can't argue with Kenny Clark, but yeah, Jair Alexander, I love that energy and that swagger he brings because that is important on defense, man. Defense relies on energy and swagger more than it relies on, some of these finer things of play calling and all of that. Like, you can only dial up something so creative on defense. You need the right play at the right time, but you need the right energy coming through that play. And right now, these guys have it. And it's we're coming to this point, Tim. We're coming to this point, and we're going to have to start talking about this. We're going to have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. Joe Barry might keep his job. And can we be mad about that? At where we're at right now, it's kind of hard to be mad about that.
Let's wait and see. Let's see how this plays out. Yes, there's a chance. And if they get through the 49ers, the chances improve a lot, but let's just wait and see how it plays out.
You're playing with house money so much right now. And that's where I'm looking at this going, daggum, man. Like, I thought, all right, get into the playoffs. Okay, you're still not making a case for your job, dude. You perform like that in the playoffs, it's pretty good. Pretty good. And if you pay attention, it's very clear Preston Smith loves Joe Barry. And Preston Smith is one of your best captains, best leaders, best guys on this defense. And if there's like a judgment test, I trust Preston Smith's judgment as far as, coach quality, character quality, whatever it may be. I trust the guy's judgment, and he loves Joe Barry.
I think that might just be that's how Preston is. Like, that's the kind of dude he is that he's not going to come out there and rip a coach. Because we could probably go back. He probably liked Pettin, was saying good things about Pettin too.
No, but I mean, it's not even the saying. It's like, I can't remember what video it was, but there was some video, and I think it was post-game, of him actually going up to Joe Barry and giving him a hug. And it looked like, like a real bro hug, you know what I mean? Not just like a, good game coach kind of hug.
Yeah, I don't see them throwing them under the bus or like they don't want to play for him or like outwardly like quitting on him. There's none of that, at least.
There hasn't been.
I'm not sure if everybody believes in what he's doing still defensively, but they're winning right now and they have changed some things defensively. So I think winning fixes everything. And I think that might be, like if they go to San Francisco and, Kyle Shanahan and that offense puts up 40 points on them, I don't think there's going to be much of a question about did Joe Barry, save his job. I think that's probably going to be the end for him.
Yeah.
But if they go in there and do a solid job like they did against the Cowboys, win the game, yeah, I think he's probably going to save his job. I mean, and honestly, like, I want the Packers to win no matter what. And if they win and keep winning, and that means Joe Barry's back, I guess I got to live with it. But I'll live with it if they're playing in the NFC Championship game or playing in the Super Bowl. Like,
that's what I mean. Is I'm looking at this right now, going, "Oh man, he's got a real path, I think, to keeping his job."
He does.
I think
there's a long way to go.
I don't think they even have to win in San Francisco for him to keep his job. You know what I mean? I think they could lose there, and he still has a path to keeping his job. And it's it's one of those things that I think at some point as fans you have to throw your hands up and say, "In coach we trust." If he's not good at his job, you guys figure that out. But this is several years in a row now. We've had frustrations with Joe Barry, but he keeps finishing strong. And if that isn't what matters, I don't know what does. You know what I mean? Like, it's not like he's showing out in the first month of the season and then falling apart. That would be far more of a problem. When you're a problem for the first couple months, but then you're really good against really good teams at the right time, man, that's hard to say no to.
Yeah, I think it's at least last year, I think they were getting turnovers, and that was helping them a lot. And it kind of made it look better than it was. So it's a small sample size. And I think the bigger sample size is like, how's he doing weeks 1 through 15 instead of weeks, 16, 17, 18. And it's not very good. But those, like I said, yeah, they had been closing pretty strong in his tenure.
Well, and if you look at development is another thing that we were critical about. And I've got we're going to be honest on this show. We may be wrong y'all, we could very easily be wrong when we're just spouting off. But
Right.
we're gonna own up to our takes if they're wrong, cold, whatever. If we got to eat crow on Joe Barry, that's fine. One area that I think we do have to start doing that is development. Like, there was definitely some problems this season with certain players, and I think it's easy now to look at that and go, maybe injuries had more of a factor in that than we thought. Because when you look at player development right now, and you look at the young guys on this squad, the Valentine tandem there. You got the young guys all across the defensive front that are showing out right now. Even LVN is putting together a pretty decent rookie season that's being overshadowed by like 7 other rookies, which is just wild. So like you look at all that, and you're like, okay, well, maybe player development's not that bad. Maybe they are developing players okay. I mean, even getting that, I don't know if you saw it. Did you see that video clip from that podcast that had Amon-Ra from the Lions, DJ Moore from the Bears, and then some other dude from the Bears? Did you see that?
I think, was it talking about the DBs and like,
Yeah,
were they,
like,
yeah, a little bit, yeah.
they were, saying, well, St. Brown, when he was saying, like, yeah, those Packers DBs, they talk. He was like, Jair was out. It was the backups, and they were talking. And then he finished it off by saying, the Packers are dangerous. There was a lot of respect coming from that video, and we really should acknowledge that 2 of the guys in that podcast are probably top 5, certainly top 10 receivers. One is an all-pro this season. St. Brown's an all-pro this season. Fair to call him a top 5 receiver. But DJ Moore has every bit of ability to be a top 5 receiver as well. And they're giving a lot of respect to the Packers in a place where they don't have to. That's, it's not like somebody's holding their feet to the fire saying, hey, tell us what you think about the Packers. Like, this is just dudes out there talking. And I love those kind of conversations, man. I think if people listen to what players say when they don't have to say something, you're going to get the most honest and transparent information you can get. And sometimes it's meaningless, right? It's just little nuggets, little something or other here and there. But like last season, right, when we're having all the controversy about Aaron Rodgers and then Devondre Campbell comes out and he starts talking about Jordan Love, saying, oh, he's a starting quarterback in this league. And everybody's like, what? And this was – Love hadn't started yet. And Devondre Campbell – offered that information in that interview. I think it was Levitt. Dalvin Levitt was the other one that was in the interview. But the question was to Levitt, and it was about I don't think it was directly about Jordan Love. Maybe it was. And then Devondre Campbell piped in on his own and said, no, Jordan Love is legit. He's a starter in this league, and he's better than a lot of guys already starting. And he totally offered that up on his own. Everybody's like, oh, whoa, what's going on? And, even in the Twitter comments, there's guys saying, oh, it's just a player, whatever, rolling their eyes, telling you to write it off. It's like, okay, well, hindsight, we were getting a lens into the future from Devondre Campbell. We just pay attention and listen up. And he's telling you what to look for. And that's what I think, same thing here. When you've got players, especially division rivals, man, they do not have to say anything good about anybody on the Packers. It'd be very easy for them to just sit there and dog on them, and, they could be wrong, but you'd understand why they did it. And instead, there's some respect coming out of those guys. And that to me is very, very attention grabbing, right? It's like, damn, man, like there's something brewing in Green Bay. And I think we all were very excited about it. And it's like, oh, hey, we made the playoffs. Cool. And now it's like, whoa, shit. Like, this team is real. I mean, after, spanking the Cowboys like that, that's like, man, what's possible next? You've really got me kind of, and we're going to, a little bit of a segue here. You really got me looking at this 49ers game going, can they actually win this thing? Surely not. Surely they can't go to San Francisco and actually win this stinking game against one of the 2 toughest looking teams in the NFL this season. There hasn't really been a juggernaut. If anybody's been a juggernaut, it's been between the Ravens and the Niners, right? That's it. And so if they – I don't know, man. I'll ask you the question. Do you think they can go in there and win that game?
I mean, yeah, there's a chance. I think this one's a much harder matchup for them than the Cowboys were.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
And they're not going to take the 49ers aren't going to take them lightly. They're not going to surprise anybody because now it's out there like, oh wow, they just went into Dallas and
Well, it's a pride
dominated
thing
the
too.
game.
Shanahan's not going to take LaFleur lightly. Ever.
No, no, no. But is there a way they can do it? Yeah, I mean, they're the hot team right now with the hot quarterback. And we've seen it, it's been a while with Rodgers and where they were kind of like the underdog and went into the playoffs. But the Super Bowl year, they were the hot team with the hot quarterback. And we saw what happened. We saw Joe Flacco get hot going in the playoffs and carry his team. We've seen it with other places too. Like the way they're playing offensively, they can put points up on anyone. And that can go, I mean, you still got to play defense, you still got to play special teams, but if their offense just continues what they've been doing, yeah, they can go in there and pull the upset on the 49ers. Now, a lot's got to happen, a lot's got to go right. They are the underdogs, and the 49ers on paper, any way you analyze this, statistically, just looking at the rosters, they're the better team.
Oh, yeah.
But there is a way. I mean, if the Packers would have won yesterday and it would have been a last-second field goal and it was an ugly game, or if Dallas just choked it away and handed it to them, maybe you'd be sitting there like, I don't know. But they went in there and dominated that game. So yeah, I mean, as the hot quarterback and the hot team, there's a way they can do it. It's going to take a lot. It's going to be their toughest game of the year so far, but it should be because you're in the divisional round.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, there's a way. And I see some people out there already saying this is the real NFC Championship game because whoever wins this is going to win the NFC Championship. I'm not ready to go that far and overlook the Lions or the Bucs, but yeah, I mean, if they stay hot on offense, there's a way.
I think it's fair to
There's
say
a way.
that this is the real NFC Championship game from the perspective that, like, it doesn't matter who you play after the 49ers. They're not as good as the 49ers. They're not. There's not another team in the NFC right now that's as good as the 49ers. The thing that, and this is where we're going to get this, it's the classic argument setting up here again, one that you'll just never get a real answer to. Do you rest players or do you not? Is the bye week good for you? Is it bad for you? Does the team with rhythm have more, or team with momentum have an advantage over the team that's been resting? Because somebody made the point that the 49ers starters haven't played a full game for 3 weeks. That's a big deal. In my opinion, 3 weeks, like 1 week is, okay. 3 weeks, it's like that's a long time.
Yeah. Well, they played the last game of the year. They did rest some guys, not everybody, but they rested some guys against the Rams. But the week before that, they had played their guys because they needed to win that to lock up home field. But yeah, and then you have a bye week. So we've seen it go both ways where the rest of the team comes out and they're fine and they win and they go on the Super Bowl. And we've seen it other ways. It's happened to the Packers. You rest guys, they get a couple weeks off and they come out and they're flat. And does that have anything to do with it? We're never really going to know for sure, but it sure seems like sometimes it does with these teams that rest guys. But the 49ers have also been through this before doing it this way. So I don't know if it affects them as much, but it's a new season, different opponent. Like it could, but it could, like, it's hard to say, but I mean, it's possible that they're a little slow to start and they're a little flat. And I think that's where it could really help Green Bay being a hot team, because if they start hot like they did against Dallas, get a little bit of a lead on San Francisco, then you're making the 49ers, you're taking them out of what they want to be. And they're a different offense when they have to drop back and throw the ball all the time, and they can't do all the cool running game and all the misdirection that they do and all the motions and stuff, and you make them have to play from behind. They're a much different team.
Yeah, well, and the Packers know that they play better with the lead. So, I mean, there's not a lot of teams that go win the toss and take the ball first, right? But that's what the Packers did against the Cowboys there, and that they know it. They know what they're good at. They know what works for them, and now they're running with it. And
they've done it a few times here recently, and it's worked. And I say keep doing it.
Yeah. So I hope they can, man. If you can jump out to an early lead, you go out, you get your first drive, you get your 7 points. anybody's ball game. I'm very excited for this game. In years past, I would not have been excited for this game. This would feel like just an inevitable embarrassment, inevitable disappointment. Not only are we playing with house money, so it's like, well, if we lose, so what? Like, good Lord. We know that Jordan Love's the guy. That was like our minimum, qualification for satisfaction on the season. Now we've got his first playoff win against Dallas, no less. Whew. I don't care if we lose to the 49ers this week. I'm not going to be devastated by that. I don't want him to lose. I'm not going to be devastated by it. My gosh, I just can't wait to see how they do. I want to see how they keep charging forward. I mean, it really does kind of look like, when you're talking about the youngest team in the league and what types of teams go into the playoffs and are good in the playoffs. Is it the veteran team that's been there before? Is it the young bucks with momentum? Right now, I think these guys have a really strong case for having the advantage by being these naive young bucks. Like they don't know enough about how hard it is to get into the playoffs, to get deep in the playoffs, to make it to the Super Bowl, to be intimidated by the moment. It's just the next game right now. And it sounds cliche, but they've captured that, and as long as they can hang, like hold on to that, I feel like they can hang with anybody.
Yeah.
It's going to be interesting, man. But, I mean, when the Packers can stop Micah Parsons and put up 48 points? 42 points?
48 points.
48 points. 48 points. Oh, yeah, he's one shy of the tied the record, one shy of breaking the record.
Yeah, missed the extra point.
Missed extra point away from breaking. Damn. Sorry, Carlson. Anyway, when you're putting up 48 points on that Cowboys defense. Now, I'm not saying the Cowboys defense is like the greatest thing but they're good. That's a good defense. Yeah, you got a DB who just broke the record for pick sixes in a season. You got, that's a good defense. You got probably the best, just from a talent perspective, defensive player in the NFL right now, and Micah Parsons on that side of the ball, and he wasn't much of a factor.
No,
that's where I'm looking at this going. Yeah, I mean the 49ers are really good too, but I just watched these guys do really good against what I think are some of the best players in the league. Like when you're watching Zach Tom handle this, or you're watching Rasheed Walker handle himself in these situations, man, like I'm not pessimistic. I'm not sitting here saying, well, they'll go in and they'll just shut down the Niners defense, but I have reason to believe they can hold their own right now, which is a really weird thing to say about one of the youngest teams in the league and a defense that's led by Joe Barry. But it really does feel like this team can hold its own. Like the players are talented, they're capable, and the coaches are getting them there.
Yeah, and all the pressure's on the 49ers. Like
it is.
They're the favorites. They have the number one seed. They're at home. Their whole season's about winning the Super Bowl. Like if they don't win the Super Bowl, it was a wasted season for the 49ers. Green Bay's perspective isn't like that, but it's kind of changing now. Yeah. So yeah, it's pressure's on the Niners. They can go out there. Packers can go out there and play loose and play confident. And it's just another team in front of them. Like it don't matter who you're playing, how many Pro Bowlers they got. We saw that yesterday. I think Dallas had something like 7 Pro Bowlers. The Packers don't have any. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. So yeah, I mean, just play with your confidence. Stay aggressive offensively. The game plans, the play calling have been awesome. Don't change what you're doing offensively. I mean, don't all of a sudden start getting, conservative or a little scared about Fred Warner and Nick Bosa and Dre Greenlaw being on the other side. Like, stay aggressive. Keep doing what you're doing. It's definitely a bigger challenge than what they saw with Dallas. This is a much better team than Dallas, but yeah, I mean.
Well, and from a historical perspective, LaFleur has not traveled well to the West Coast for whatever reason. The Packers have historically just done very well down here in Dallas. In Jerry World, I should say. At the old Cowboys Stadium, it was a different conversation.
Yeah, they couldn't win down there.
Couldn't win there.
No. Even when the Packers were good. I mean, Dallas was good at the same time, too. Yeah. So that was ultimately the difference. But, yeah, they couldn't win down there.
Now think about this, and I don't have the current game on, so I don't know who's winning the current game, but I know the Bucs were winning when we started this podcast.
Yeah, they're up big. It's
Okay,
going to be
so
the
it looks
Bucs.
like the Eagles are out, huh?
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
What a playoff week. My goodness. So if the Eagles are out, so now you've got the Bucks, the Lions, obviously San Fran left, right? So those are the 3 left outside of the Packers.
Yeah.
The Packers go off and beat the Niners here, and then you got either the Bucks or the Lions left to face. That could be one hell of a '90s revenge tour, right? Like
Right.
because the Bucks were a rival in the '90s, right? And obviously
they
the
were
Lions
division.
rival. So,
Yeah.
and the Lions haven't been much of a rival since the '90s, since Barry Sanders. So yeah, could end up being a really interesting hindsight perspective on this playoff run, but either way, let's talk about what it's going to take, man. Like, what do you think it's going to take for them to win this game? Like, give me like kind of like one thing on offense, one thing on defense here.
Yeah. So I think offensively, it kind of all blends together, but you need 7 points, 3 points. You cannot settle for field goals. That's not going to be enough. Kicking the ball at the end of your drives is not going to be good. So you need touchdowns.
Yeah.
And I think what they should hope to do, and what the say game plan, but it's hard to do this. But what you would hope to do is long drives that end in touchdowns. Like we've talked about this, like the Kansas City game in the first half, where you just take, and they did it the opening drive against Dallas, took like 8 minutes or 7.5 minutes. Half the first quarter was over by the time Dallas finally touched the ball. Those long drives, which end in touchdowns and keep the other team's offense off the field and shorten the game for your defense. That's what you need offensively. So it starts there, and I think it starts with the offensive line being really good again, because this is a deeper team, a better team. And like we had talked about it last week, previewing the Cowboys, you could run on the Cowboys, and they like to play guys that were the size of safeties at linebacker, and they continue to do that. Played light boxes, played with the smaller linebackers, and the Packers ran at them. They ran at them with their 12 personnel using 2 tight ends. The 49ers kind of don't have that fatal flaw. They're going to keep Fred Warner and Dre Greenlaw out there, and those guys are 2 stud linebackers. We know they have the pass rushers. So it's going to be – we want to feed Aaron Jones always, but it's got to be balanced. You got to be able to do both, because I don't think Aaron Jones is going to be able to rip off 120 yards on these guys. Maybe he will. Maybe that'll and if so, awesome. That'll go a long way to helping them win the game. But you got to have balance, and I think you got to sustain long drives that end in touchdowns so that you can limit the amount of time that your defense is on the field. And on the flip side, I think it's a very tough matchup for the defense. They're loaded with, Christian McCaffrey and Kittle and Samuel and Brandon Ayuk, and then they have the future Hall of Fame left tackle. Purdy's played out of his mind this year because he's just a perfect fit for Shanahan's system. And it's McCaffrey running the ball. It's McCaffrey catching the ball. Dual threat that
he's a huge threat.
Yeah, this is an incredibly tough matchup for the Packers defense. Really for any defense, but especially for the Packers defense. So what can they do defensively? I think you got to force some turnovers. That would go a long way, because I think they're going to just have trouble stopping them. Like if 3 and outs, I mean, I don't know if they're going to get any 3 and outs on Sunday. I hope I'm wrong, but it's going to be tough to get 3 and outs. It's going to be tough to get them punting the ball to you. So you're going to have to force those turnovers. And I think what you can, schematically do is crowd the middle of the field, because they love to throw the in-breaking routes. But you got to make Purdy throw the ball outside the numbers, because he doesn't have that special kind of arm strength to get it there consistently. Force him to throw the ball outside of the numbers, because that's when his accuracy is going to kind of be up and down, and that's when you might get chances at turnovers and interceptions. That to me is best case scenario. Put him in situations where he's got to throw the ball outside the numbers and hope that you can create some takeaways. The Ravens went in there, and the Ravens, yes, they have a much better defense than the Packers, but they forced 4 interceptions from Purdy, and then 1 from Darnold once Purdy got knocked out of the game. So he will throw you some picks. He can, you can force him into that. But it's that initial read. If you can cloud his mind and make him hold the ball and have some hesitation, I think that's when you can get your chance at some takeaways from him. That's the best case scenario because as a defense, they do not match up well with the 49ers at all.
No, and that's the scary thing to me, and that's where I would say if you're Joe Barry, you've got to keep doing what's been working, and that is the pass rush, man. You've got to make Purdy uncomfortable. He's not a very mobile guy. He's not, he's not Tom Brady and Peyton Manning. He doesn't have cement for feet, but he doesn't want to be mobile. So I think that's one thing you got to do. You probably need to bring pressure up the middle in the A gap, flush them out, and have Quay Walker kind of spying out there, rolling along, because he is good at improvising. That's one thing that he's done a good job of shaking that title of game manager this season. Brock Purdy can make some plays. So, but I think you have to put him in that position and say, fine, you can make plays. Let's see if you can make plays, and then keep him in front of you, right? I mean, as much as I don't want to tell Joe Barry that, it's like, hey, man, don't get stuck calling nickel, but, keep him in front of you here. Don't get beat deep by these guys, because there's a lot of ways that could happen. But I think you're dead on, man. I think that what they want to do is take advantage of that middle of the field with Kittle, with Samuel, even with Wheels getting McCaffrey rolling up the side to open up the middle. There's a lot of stuff that they do with that. Ayuk is one of the best receivers fundamentally in the league. Excellent route runner, excellent separation. I mean, they have a test on their hands, but I think what you have to do as a defense is let your best players do what they do best. You've got to put Jair in man coverage. You got to get your DBs in man coverage and let them win this psychological battle, right? And I think that's part of what they've been good at lately. And what we were talking about with St. Brown and on that podcast where he's saying these backups are running their mouth and stuff, that if you do it right, if you're just garbage, that's not going to help you. But if you're good and you're doing that right, that you can win some psychological battles there, even with some of the best players. And that's why I think maybe St. Brown didn't have a great game against the Packers. I don't think he was expecting Valentine to come out running his mouth and having the swag of an all-pro DB, but he does. And so that's what I would say is, like, what the defense has to do in this game to win is you've got to be allowed to do what you do best. The DBs need to be in man coverage. You need to be roughing these guys up, and what the 49ers are doing, a lot of it is kind of long developing. So if you do send the pass rush, you've got your DBs jamming these guys on the line, they're not going to be successful in some of these longer developing concepts. They're going to have to figure out something that's a little bit quicker to move the ball. And then you've got them on their heels, right? So then you're at least in an advantageous position. But from the offensive side of the ball going against that defense, I think that this will be the biggest test for Jordan Love yet. Fred Warner is one of the reasons. He's probably one of the smartest defensive players in the league. He is not going to make anything easy to read for Jordan Love. They obviously have just a gnarly pass rush. I mean, if the Cowboys have a good pass rush, the 49ers have a better pass rush with Chase Young on one side and Bosa on the other. I mean, that's just not fair. And, Randy Gregory's backing him up. He's not bad either. And, you got the guys on the inside. So, yeah, you got a real test there coming at you. And that's why one of the reasons I said I was so excited about this Cowboys game was the O-line. It's like, shoot, this O-line looks damn good. You're coming up against probably your biggest test with this Niners defensive front, but you look ready for it. They were going into Chicago, right? We're kind of like, man, the Chicago defense, they're not so bad. Yeah. And then, boom, check that box. And then you're going into Dallas, like, Micah Parsons, man, that defense, they're not so bad. Man, they checked that box pretty hard too. So now I'm looking at this going, yeah, I get it. The 49er defense is pretty good, but so is this O-line, right? So let's see good on good here and see what happens. But I'm not looking at this as some sort of inevitable defeat as I might have been even just 2 weeks ago. If you're like, well, you get to see the 49ers in 2 weeks, I'll be like, oof, we may be all right, but I don't think we're winning that game. Now I'm like, well, shoot, I don't know that there's anybody these guys can't play with right now. So I think you've gotta win. Like, just to get back to like what it's going to take for them to win. We covered the defense. You've got to win on the offensive side of the ball with that O-line. The
Yeah.
O-line has to win the game.
You're
That
right.
doesn't mean that it's a spotless game, but if you're going to win the game, you have to win there. If you don't win there, you're not going to win on the outside. You're not going to win with Aaron Jones. Jordan Love's going to be running for his life. You have to win on the O-line. And winning really might just be, 60, 65%, right? Again, it's not perfect. We're not talking perfection, but it's doing just enough to get the ball down the field. So I think that's what it's going to take. But you're talking about the tallest order they've got this season. That's for sure.
Yeah, this is definitely it. But there's a way. They're going to have to score points, and it might have to be a shootout for them to win it. But we know they can score points, and we know their offense is rolling, so that gives them the shot.
They just put up 48 points. Holy crap, man! Like it just, yeah, and it's coming from all angles. Let's talk a little bit about it because you mentioned it a little, briefly there, and we're talking about what it's going to take for the offense to do something here. Mm-hmm. You mentioned it earlier. We did this without Jaden Reed or Christian Watson being a factor. Christian Watson was absolutely a factor, and I know you know this. You saw it. Yeah. There were some routes that he was taking 3-4 DBs with him downfield. So when we see shots of guys wide open and we're going, what the heck happened there? Look around, you're probably seeing a whole gang running with number 9, and that just tells you how much these defenses respect that dude's freak speed. He has speed that these defenses do not want to find out about. And so, he had an impact. I think he will certainly be just as impactful against the 49ers and might be one of the reasons they can actually, gain some yards and get this ball moving against this defense because they're going to have to account for him. So whether it's moving horizontally or vertically, he's going to have defenders running with him. He's going to get linebackers' feet stuck in the ground. He's going to get DBs following him, and he's going to open up tight ends underneath. So that's one thing that I would also look at outside of the O-line is Christian Watson. How do they use him to spread this defense out and really stress them from a physical perspective?
Yeah, and kind of in tandem with that is they are spreading the ball around to everybody. I mean, Jaden Reed didn't have a catch yesterday. Watson had, one catch or 2 catches. He did have a big impact, like you're saying, but statistically, they were both very quiet.
Right.
And San Francisco, since LaFleur's gotten to Green Bay, when we've played them, they're used to seeing us with Devontae Adams. Right. And we're force feeding Devontae, and absolutely we should be because he's one of the best receivers in football. But for a really good defense like that, it's easier for them to game plan when they know that they really have to just focus on one dude. Now it's everybody's involved. So, you want to focus on Christian Watson. You're still going to have to run down the field with him, and that's going to open up things for your other receivers and your tight ends over the middle of the field. Who else you want to take away? Because Reed wasn't a factor, but Romeo Doubs and Wicks were yesterday, and Musgrave was, and then Aaron, there's a lot of dudes. And with the way this offense is run, we're not forcing the ball to one guy over and over again. They have a lot of answers for things right now, and that's a credit to the players, of course, but it's also a credit to LaFleur and his system and the design of the plays and what he's calling as a play caller. So it's a little bit of a different offense than what the 49ers have seen from Green Bay, at least in the LaFleur years. And I think that can obviously benefit the Packers a lot.
For sure. Well, yeah, and let's have a little bit of fun now with just some fan speculation, and we're talking about this 49ers game. LaFleur's got something that's not on film that he's saving for Shanahan. They got like a rival thing going on, right? Like they came up through the same time. LaFleur kind of came up under Shanahan on a lot of the same staffs there with the Falcons, with the Redskins. So I think LaFleur's got some, just maybe not a lot. It might just be a couple things, but I think he's got 1 or 2 things up his sleeve that's not on film, that's waiting specifically for Shanahan.
Yeah, I think he could, but the scary part of that is the flip side, that Shanahan probably has some things for Joe Barry.
Oh, yeah.
And he could probably give Joe Barry his game plan, and he's still going to eat Joe Barry's lunch. Like,
Oh, that's why I said what it's going to take for them to win is letting the defense, the players, do what they do best, and that's where it comes down to who can do what, and less about like what
yeah,
scheme wins over what.
right, right.
Like I'd rather Joe Barry be less of a factor in this, because I think if you, like, when Pettin was here, you knew that there was a little bit of a personal battle going on there, right? Like that you heard
Hmm.
about it, like, oh, they used to go back and forth in practice and all of that, and Shanahan like had kind of a sense of pride in beating up on Pettin and kind of bullying him a little bit. I don't think there's that same, relationship with Joe Barry. I don't know that they've
No,
ever shared a staff. Um, but yeah, I mean, Joe Barry's not some kind of defensive scheme mastermind. We can all, we can give him credit and say that he's had the defense ready to
he's
go
not.
these last few weeks, but he's no Dom Capers in his prime here. Let's not get him
No,
confused,
he's not.
right?
He's not even close.
He's not cooking up a psycho package or anything like that.
He's he ain't
You
cooking
know.
up much, I don't think. Well,
So that's
like,
where hopefully that actually is an advantage for the Packers because Shanahan doesn't have something to manipulate as much.
maybe, I don't know. I think that the best hope for the defense is either turnovers or bend but don't break, where you
Yeah.
can at least hold them to 3 points because they're going to move the ball. So keep them out of the end zone, hold them to field goals, and just hope your offense can keep up and be
But
scoring
again,
touchdowns.
you got to keep him in front of you. You can't let, Kittle sneak past you, kind of like what
Yeah,
Musgrave did with the Cowboys. You can't let, McCaffrey sneak out on a wheel and rip off a 50, 60-yarder. You got to limit those big plays and keep them in front of you, which, again, it's kind of a dangerous thing for a Packers fan to be suggesting to Joe Barry because we're very critical of his strategy for keeping him in front. But in this case, I think that's what we need. So shall we get into some predictions here, man?
yeah. Let's go ahead.
All right. We're whittling down what we've got, but the Lions are still in it. The Packers are still in it. So
Yeah,
we do have predictions to be made, and I think at this point, I don't know if that Bucks Eagles
it's
game is
final. Yeah, they
over,
blew
but
them out,
okay,
so they won
okay.
easily.
So the Bucks will move on to face the Lions. Well, let's talk about that game, man, because Baker Mayfield. And while this is a good segue from Joe Barry, because that was one of the points of criticism, and I think we all had for Joe Barry is it's like he got lit up by Baker Mayfield. Well, is that bad of a deal, or is Baker Mayfield looking pretty good?
He's looking pretty good. I mean, it's still to the extreme that he lit us up. It wasn't good, but he played really nice against the Eagles tonight. His stats aren't going to look like earth shattering, but he had a bunch of drop passes.
Oh, he had 337 for 3 touchdowns. That's
Yeah,
enough.
he would have been over 400 if he didn't have the drop passes.
Yeah.
And that game would have gotten. I mean, it was fairly close at halftime. It would have gotten away from the Eagles even before halftime, but
Yeah.
yeah, he's playing good. Their defense is playing really well for him. So I think they have a shot going into Detroit. Detroit's the favorite. Detroit was able to kind of survive against the Rams. They got off to a really hot start in the first half, and then the second half, I think they only got 3 points.
Yeah.
But they were able to hold the Rams to field goals throughout the game. Um, the one thing I worry about with Detroit, that was their first playoff win in like 33 years or whatever it was. They celebrated that like it was a Super Bowl. Like guys are
Oh yeah.
crying, and I mean, like maybe it means nothing, maybe it does, but like, are they going to be up again for another playoff game? Because that kind of was like everything, like not
We've
just to their
seen that.
fans, but to their players, to Dan Campbell, where it was like they put so much into that.
That's a real thing, man. That emotional hangover, that's a real
Yeah,
thing.
and like I said, they scored 3 points in the second half. They didn't do a whole lot offensively in the second half.
Well, the Buccaneers
So
aren't going to make it easy on them. We can
yeah, and
say that
that's
for sure.
I think so too. I mean, I'm picking the Lions, but and maybe it doesn't have anything to do with it, and they're ready emotionally, and they come out there and control the game and take care of business. But I just wonder if there's a hangover for the Lions from winning a playoff game, which sounds crazy, but when you haven't won one in 30 some years, that could happen. And they treated it like I said, like it was their Super Bowl. Um,
Well, they hang
if
division
they,
banners.
yeah, they probably will hang up a stupid banner for winning a playoff game. If they were if they were playing a team that's a little better than the Bucks, I would really think they're ready to lose this game, the Lions. But I just don't think the Bucks are. They're not as deep. Well, they're not as complete of a team as the Lions are. Plus, the Lions being at home will help them. I think they do overcome whatever kind of letdown they have. Maybe they get off to a slow start, but I think they find a way to win, and the Lions advance to the NFC Championship game, which is crazy to think.
Tim, I think you just said something, but I couldn't possibly have heard you just say the Lions are going to the NFC Championship game. I'm sure we've still got streaming issues.
It's like Bizarro World.
Yeah, I get it. They're one game away from that. I understand that there's logically a pretty close chance of that happening, but my goodness, my brain just can't put the Lions in the NFC Championship. It's just coming up with an error every time I try to make that happen.
I know, it's crazy.
Not happening. So yeah, I'm gonna take the Bucks. I'm gonna take the Bucks in this one. The Lions have played really tough football, but I feel like they have the ability to just get beat at some point. That kind of happened against the Packers on Thanksgiving, right? It was like it feels like if they're not in a close one, games can get away from them. And I think that the Bucks have the firepower to do that, right? I mean, Mike Evans, man, like we got to stop underestimating this dude. He is good. He is a beast. And you got Chris Godwin put up. I'll go back to their game today, but they've got some firepower on that offense. The Lions, their offense to me is good, but it's not scary. Like Jared Goff isn't like scaring someone. He's good. He's got moments. He's good. He's not scary. And now I sound like Richard Sherman. At the risk of sounding like Richard Sherman, I'm not making like some kind of blanket statement like you'll never scare anyone. It's just like he's not. He doesn't have that kind of like, oh man, I don't want to face that guy in the playoffs.
They're very streaky.
Yeah, they're streaky. Yeah.
Like they can get hot on offense, but then they hit a brick wall and they do nothing.
Yeah, so that's why I feel like the Bucks right now they've got some momentum. I feel like they've got a little bit more momentum than the Lions. Like you saying the Lions really survived against the Rams there. See, I'll take the Bucks. My brain just won't put the Lions in the NFC Championship game. It's not happening. So we'll pick the Bucks there. But the game that we care the most about here, man, the Packers heading to San Francisco to play the 49ers. Can they do it, Tim?
I gotta stay positive. Like, there's a head and a heart pick. I'm not listening to my head. So I'm going with the heart. I'm riding the heart. We're gonna ride the hot hand and hot offense, and they're win a shootout. It'll be close. It'll be down to the wire, but somehow, some way, we're the last team with the ball, so we score and
hell yeah.
Keep it going. The offense is just, and Jordan Love outplays Brock Purdy. Their defense finds a way to get, whether it's a turnover, whether it's a stop or it's something, a couple field goals instead of touchdowns, something to give the offense the ability to get ahead. And yeah, they pull it out in a shootout. Well, that's my heart talking, not my head.
I'm going to agree with you, man. I think just because it's fun to make this prediction, I couldn't make a good objective argument to pick the Packers over the Cowboys, right? The Cowboys were the better team on paper, undefeated at Jerry World this year, all that. But yeah, I mean, I picked the Packers for that game. Same thing here. Like the 49ers are the better team on paper. They've got all the advantage for them and everything. But yeah, dude, this is starting to feel to me kind of like the Super Bowl run in 2010 did. Not to say that they're on a Super Bowl run, but when they beat Philly in the wild card that season, you're just like, oh, okay, all right, we're on a playoff game. All right, we beat Philly, man. We've had a hard time against Philly. All right, okay.
And the next week,
the next week, you're thinking, no, you can't beat Matty Ice in Atlanta.
The number one seed, just like the Niners.
Number one seed, yeah, man. Like, and it was kind of insurmountable, right? It was like, man, Matty Ice doesn't lose in Atlanta in the Dome, dude. He was putting up big numbers. Like, yeah, you don't lose that. You're gonna lose that game. You can't beat these guys. And you just lost in Atlanta. And not granted, it was a close game, but you just recently lost. And so, yeah, I mean, it does. It feels like that. We're just like, man, you're not supposed to win this game, but geez, you might. You might do it. So yeah, I'm gonna pick the Packers in this one, man. And I do think it could be a situation where it's whoever has the ball last. And give Jordan Love an iconic moment, to show off the ice in his veins. But I'm going to make a bold prediction and say that the defense actually comes up with the play to change the game or seal the game, one of the two. And the defense is the hero of this game. I'm gonna go against everything I've said all year.
Rashawn Gary strip sack.
Rashawn Gary strip sack. There we go. Yeah, so let's go Pack go, man. I think they pulled this one out. Or I feel I don't think they pulled that. Not a whole lot of thinking going on in this one. It's more of a feel.
Don't think. Can only hurt the team.
We're playing with house money, Packers fans. We've got no reason to be upset if they lose this game. We've got all the reason in the world to be ecstatic if they win it. So win-win situation, house money. These are the games we got to enjoy. Like, if you're a Packers fan right now and you are not enjoying this moment, you're doing it wrong. You gotta fix something about how you're doing it because you're doing it wrong. These are the moments we're supposed to just really have fun with. So
enjoy the journey.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the journey because who knows where it's going. And when it's over, we got a really long time before real football comes back. We got to do a lot of speculation about we don't want to get there yet. All right, we got real football, so let's just stay there for now. But yeah, what we really would like is if you guys would all take a moment to do a quick, generous act on the current social media platform that you are listening to this podcast on, unless it's on PackersTalk.com right now. I don't think that we have a like button on there, but if you are listening to us on PackersTalk.com, go check us out on Twitter, on all the others, YouTube. Check out the PackersTalk.com YouTube channel. Subscribe. Spike the like button, do all the follows, all the good stuff. All of it only takes a few seconds for you guys. It's free, and it really means a lot to us. It supports the show, and it keeps us talking to you guys, or at least talking to each other another week, So please do that. We would love that. And come back, join us next week. Hopefully we'll be talking about some kind of wild victory over the 49ers, and we're talking about a Packers 90s revenge tour through the playoffs. Man, there's a lot of fun possibilities. We would love to have y'all join us again, jump in the conversation, answer some of the questions with us, speculate, talk some trash if you need to. Plenty of trash talk to be done. If we need to pull some receipts on some Cowboys or 49ers fans still, we can do that. We're having all the fun that fans are supposed to have right now. So come join us. Y'all do it with us. But most importantly, make sure you're enjoying this Packers season right now because it is a special one. And, of course, I'm going to sign us off with a Go Pack.